Hello and welcome into a Q30 Sports Special Report. I'm Mike Auletta. We now have confirmation that Quinnipiac University athletics will be changing conferences. The Bobcats will be moving into the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference after spending the last 15 years in the Northeast Conference. To help break things down, let's welcome two analysts to the broadcast. Jon Alba, Associate Sports Director of Q30 Television, has pioneered the coverage of potential conference changes for Quinnipiac, and Jordan Katz, a basketball analyst for the Quinnipiac Bobcat Sports Network. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me. Jon, what was your initial reaction to this move?
Well, Mike, this was something that we've been anticipating for a while. I remember last September, I received first word that there was an opportunity for the Quinnipiac Bobcats to move out of the Northeast Conference and potentially somewhere else. And there were a lot of other leagues that were thrown around, the Patriot League, the America East. But ultimately, it seems that the Director of Athletics and Recreation, Jack McDonald, determined that the MAAC would be the best fit for Quinnipiac. And I got to tell you, this is not just a matter of athletics, but this is definitely an academics move. The MAAC is an excellent fit for Quinnipiac, and Quinnipiac is now, believe it or not, the highest enrolled school in all the conference.
Jordan, do you believe the Bobcats are ready for this bigger stage?
Initially, I think for the women, I think they are. I think outside of Marist, the women's basketball team is probably will walk in as being the second best team in the MAAC conference. For the men, I'm not so sure. I understand that the men beat Iona in the Paradise Jam, but in large part that was a game that was at Iona's pace. And personally, I think if Iona played the Quinnipiac men's squad 10 times at Iona's pace, Iona would win at least 7 or 8. I'm not sure offensively they're there. I'm sure, though, very quickly that they will get there because it's not a strong rebounding conference. It's not a strong defensive conference. And the types of games that Tom Moore likes to coach, he'll be able to win. So I think very quickly they can get there.
Now, basketball being Jordan's forte, but Jon, there's more to this move than just basketball. What can you tell us about the other teams and how they are affected?
I mentioned to you that academics would be huge, and that's one of the total outside factors here, and I think it was very important. But in terms of the other teams, this move, Mike, is one that goes far beyond just basketball, even though the MAAC, as Jordan mentioned, is basically a basketball conference. The MAAC needs a big boost in the arm with soccer, and both the men's and women's squad had successful seasons here at Quinnipiac this past year. While the women's team wasn't quite as successful and didn't find themselves in the Northeast Conference tournament, the men's team won the regular season title, and that, you have to believe, was immense influence in getting leverage for Quinnipiac to make the move. It also helps Quinnipiac baseball. There's no surprise around here that this team has not been one of the best on the campus. The MAAC has a rich baseball tradition, with Manhattan being one of the best teams in the nation in regards of home record. 19-0 at home last year. That's the type of thing that this conference holds in high regard. So baseball will now get some precedence here at Quinnipiac.
This is a Q30 Sports Special Report. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we will break down the newly shaped Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference.
I could really go for a Ray and Mike sub right now.
Come to Ray and Mike's and try our Philly chicken with cheese for just over $4, giant cheesesteak subs, and mouth-watering boar's head sandwiches for as low as $4.75. Q-Cash accepted just a mile down the road on Whitney, here at Ray and Mike's.
Jordan, do you foresee any rivalries possibly brewing in this new conference?
I think for Quinnipiac, I think the real rivalry is going to be Fairfield. I think we saw that in the Connecticut 6, I believe, last year, where both the teams, it was a very tense battle between the two teams on the court, and there weren't that many fans there. It was a very physical game, and I think when you bring in the fan atmosphere, I think that's going to be the real rivalry.
Absolutely, and a lot of people try to say Central Connecticut State and Quinnipiac have a rivalry. It's not quite the same. Fairfield is a much more similar school to Quinnipiac.
Gentlemen, we're running out of time here. Clock is ticking. Any last thoughts?
I think I know Jon's spoken about how it's a move for not just basketball, but basketball being my expertise, I'm going to stick to that. I think For the women's basketball team, I think it's going to be a great test for them because it's a conference that they should go into and still be one of the top 4 teams. And so I think it's going to be a great test for them to see if they can be that. For the men's side, gotta love the excitement of going up against potential teams. You know, Canisius is playing Syracuse. You know, a bunch of teams in the MAAC have played other Big East teams like Rutgers and Pittsburgh and Louisville. And I think that the excitement of that for Quinnipiac Bobcat fans.
Well, many of those aren't going to be left in the Big East anyway, because it's funny. I've spoken with a lot of people about this in the past, and the sources that I've spoken to who have direct knowledge of the situation say that this is almost like a seismic shift in conferences, and this is not going to stop changing anytime soon. So just because Quinnipiac has found its way into a new conference doesn't mean that the other people surrounding it are done either. I believe that, as Jordan mentioned, the out-of-conference schedules will pick up quite a bit in terms of intensity for Quinnipiac, and that aids in 2 ways. Number one, monetary, obviously. The bigger names, the more fans you're going to attract, that's huge. Number two, notoriety. It puts Quinnipiac on the map. People will know that Hamden, Connecticut is home of the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference Quinnipiac Bobcats. And that is exactly what the upper echelon here at this school have been aiming to do for the past several years. You've seen all the improvements, the beautiful facility up on top of York Hill. They wanted to make Quinnipiac basketball, hockey, baseball, softball, you name it, into a brand. And that is what this move is about.
If you thought that the UConn-Quinnipiac game, the double overtime thriller, drew a lot of buzz, who knows? Maybe you see UConn every other year, alternating between UConn hosting and then UConn possibly coming to Quinnipiac. There's a lot of potential for this move, and I think it's a great move for all sports.
Jordan Katz, Jon Alba, 2 of Quinnipiac's best. Thanks for tuning in to our broadcast. Again, the Quinnipiac University Bobcats will be leaving the Northeast Conference for the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. For all of Q30 Sports, I'm Mike Auletta. We hope you enjoy your holiday season.